What we are going to do here is look at a rather quick slideshow of the early mills. I'll show you a number of pictures and then we'll come back and talk about each one of them individually. This was the township, the frontier map made by the courthouse. That was the Best, B-E-S-T mill, the hammer mill site. There isn't a mill there anymore. The old Ottoman mill, and that's how you dress a millstone on the right. These were records I got from the courthouse showing the early mills, and this is a Currier and Ives print showing the nostalgia for the early mills. John Smale, who grew up at a mill site out by Jeanette. And that circle over on the left will show you county fairs, which were instrumental in promoting the early mills. And what we do here is go backwards a bit. This was a drawing by a guy named Eric Sloan, and I like it. I reworked it a bit to show the things that I'm working on, trying to talk about. It shows how a water mill, this is a water mill, the drive shaft goes inside, and this shaft goes up to run a combination of burrs. The old stones that ground flour were called burrs. The bottom one stayed still, and the top one rotated. And the wheat was poured down in there, and it was ground up between these stones. And then it would come out between the two of them and build up in this box and then go down a chute. And then after that it was run through what we call a bolting cloth, and that would separate the actual flour from the bran and the middlings, which are the parts of the kernel of the wheat. And you see over here that that drive shaft connected to what's called a crankshaft. You probably heard of a crankshaft in the engine of your car. This is a very simple form of that same object, and it can translate rotary power into reciprocating power. And so what that can do is make a saw go up and down, and that's what you're doing in the old sawmills. It wasn't until the steam engines came that they had the rotary saws, because you needed a lot faster rotation. This is what they did before the up and down sawmills were developed. This is how they made boards. They had a guy on top of a log and a guy down in a pit. And they would, move this thing up and down. And think about it. You would not do that stuff very long until you'd have to think, well, man, there has to be an easier way of doing this. And sure enough, there was. They figured out how to put a crank shaft on the old rotary water mills and attach it to a blade, and you had an up and down sawmill. This shows the old frontier map made by the mapping department at the courthouse. And what I did was put this red boundary on it to show the dimensions of Hempfield Township. The other thing that I did was replace where Penn Township was taken out. What happened here was in 1855, a part of Hempfield Township was removed. And we have remaining Hempfield Township is somewhat less than it used to be. And I wanted to show how Hempfield Township used to be before the 1850s. And there was also a little bit of it running down this way, south. You had on the south boundary Braddock's Military Road. The north boundary you had Forbes Military Road. Up here was Hannestown. Down here is Greensburg, the county seat. You have I can say that by 1802 there were at least 15 mills in the township. A few of them are pointed out on this map, not many. You have Poole's Mill down here, Painter's Mill, there's Rice's Mill over here. Also things like Rue's Blockhouse, which used to be in South Greensburg. Miller's Station, which was out to the east of Greensburg. It was a place where people could go. Another place which was a place which was protected. It was built so that if the early people had to deal with an Indian raid, they could go somewhere where they could protect themselves. And this is what was known as the Best, B-E-S-T mill originally. It sat right to the north of Greensburg. That mill pond is right where the railroad embankment goes over. This would be Arch Street coming down, and the arch would be right down here. And we know that by 1808, William Best was running both a grist and sawmill here. And in 1818, he sold this to the Jacks. And on this pond, the mill pond, old Mr. Mellon, Thomas Mellon, the founder of a financial dynasty, when he was a young boy, he remembered skating on this pond. He wrote about it when he was an old man. This is the hammer mill. This is south of Greensburg. And if you want to visit this site, it's springtime. I mean, take a walk out to, or take your car down and drive over the Huff Avenue and stop at the parking lot right by the trail, the 5-star trail that goes down the old railroad, and start walking south. And the first bridge you come to takes Jack's Creek, Jack's Run underneath the railroad, and look over here, and you'll see the site that used to be Hammer's Mill. There was also, once upon a time, a streetcar track going up. That's gone. Hammer Mill is gone. And to try to locate it a little bit better, this was Hempfield Manor. I mean, this is Hempfield Manor. It was also the site of the county home farm, the county poorhouse, or whatever you want to call it. This here is 119, or South Main Street, Keystone Avenue, which goes through this southern part of Greensburg. And I see we're very close, or at time, and we have to say so long.